Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our panel today on Yemen. We have three speakers who are focusing on the Yemeni crisis, and we have one speaker from Yemen and one speaker from the UK and one from Turkey. Dr. Selim is working for the Police Academy. Today we will discuss the current status of the crisis in Yemen and the role of domestic and external actors, and as well as the future of the crisis, where it is heading and what will come next. So first of all, I would like to invite Professor Ahmed Uysal, our director, to give a welcome speech, and then we will go to our panelists.
Hello everyone. As you know, we are following the developments in the Middle East very closely, and unfortunately the Middle East is full of crisis and a lot of conflicts happening. And in the Orsam Center we are having a good debate today about Yemen, but I want to also remind you that we have other programs, training programs, publication, and also research outcomes we share periodically with our audience. And the Yemen crisis is really an unfortunate one because it was plagued by the coup and the coup mentality, and anti-democracy camp mostly caused this suffering. We know Yemeni people did a great job to topple the authoritarian regime, but then the anti-democratic camp tried to involve them in the democratic transition process. Then they rebelled against the democratic process itself. Then even it ended up with the killing of the former dictator that was part of the setup. But now we see the Yemeni people are suffering, really suffering dearly, and it's causing huge problem for the Yemeni people. Humanity issues that our speakers will mention, but the suffering and the problem there is happening in front of the eyes of the world public opinion, but it is real tragedy, and any solution, any push for a solution is really needed, and we need more awareness of the global public opinion, global community on these issues. I mean, it is not supposed to be an unsolvable or unresolvable conflict. All conflicts have possible solution, not even one solution, maybe more than one solution, and we need to seek solution, we need to work for it, and we need to have a peaceful and stable region. And I welcome again our dear participants, as well as the speakers. We will benefit from their insightful comments and their presentation. And Yemen is, I want to repeat, is part of us, and we feel strongly about it. And welcome again, and wish a fruitful debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ahmed. So now I will give the floor to our first speaker, Dr. Salih Al-Gabri, who is a Yemeni, and he is heading the New Yemen Center based in Istanbul. So please.
شكرا جزيلا للمركز اليمن الإعلامي ومعهد أورسام والزملاء في المنصة لإتاحة هذه الفرصة لنتكلم عن قضية خطيرة وشائكة، هي القضية اليمنية. اليمن يمر بمنعطف خطير جدا، خاصة بعد أن للأسف الشديد اتضحت كثير من القضايا خاصة من التحالف العربي الذي جاء لتحقيق بعض الأهداف التي رسمها وأعلنها في 26 مارس 2015. اليمن يعيش مأساة إنسانية وسياسية واقتصادية ومأساة حكم أيضا. وأس المشكلة في اليمن هو انقلاب جماعة ميليشيات الحوثي المدعومة إماراتيا، انقلبت على الشرعية. للتقريب لهذا المثل لما حدث في اليمن، نحن نشبه انقلاب وتمرد ميليشيات الحوثي على الشرعية في اليمن مثل منظمة PKK التي تحارب الدولة في تركيا. ما يحدث في اليمن أن جماعة انقلبت على سلطة، وجماعة دعمت من بعض دول الخليج حتى وصلت إلى العاصمة صنعاء. هذه هي أس المشكلة في اليمن. لابد أن يفهم المشاهد والمستمع العربي والغربي بأن سبب المشكلة الرئيسية في اليمن هي انقلاب جماعة أقلية استخدمت مظلومية الأقلية، وهم لا يمثلون تقريبا سوى 4 إلى 5% من سكان اليمن، أقصد الحوثيين. لا نتكلم عن مذهب زيدي أو شافعي، فنحن عشنا سنوات طويلة لا فروق بين المذهب الزيدي ولا الشيعي. لا يوجد في اليمن حرب بين السنة والشيعة، لا يوجد في اليمن حرب بين السعودية واليمن، لا يوجد في اليمن حرب أهلية. في اليمن جماعة انقلبت على سلطة شرعية، ثم هذه السلطة الشرعية استعانت بجارتها المملكة العربية السعودية. والمملكة العربية السعودية كونت تحالف سمي بالتحالف العربي ل 12 دولة، وما بقي منه إلا 2 أو 3 دول، يعني إنزال العدد. نحن اليوم مشكلتنا في اليمن نعيش بين شرين: شر انقلاب ميليشيات الحوثي المدعوم من إيران، وشر التحالف العربي وتحديدا الإمارات العربية المتحدة. التحالف قال أنه جاء لتحقيق 3 أهداف: القضاء على تمرد ميليشيات الحوثي، والهدف الثاني هو إعادة الشرعية إلى السلطة، والهدف الثالث إعمار اليمن. ما الذي يتحقق من هذه الأهداف ال3؟ للأسف لم يتحقق أي هدف، بل زاد تقسيم اليمن ودعمت جماعات خارجة عن إطار الدولة. الإمارات خرجت علانية وأصبحت كما يسميها اليمنيون عدو واضح لليمنيين ومحتلة لليمن، لأنها أخذت الشطر الجنوبي من اليمن أو المحافظات الجنوبية واستولت على الموانئ البحرية والمطارات، وأنشأت جماعات مسلحة خارجة عن إطار الشرعية، وأساءت إلى سمعة الشرعية. صحيح أن اليوم يوجد مساحة 80% من مساحة اليمن بيد الشرعية، أي بيد الحكومة المعترف بها دوليا، و20% لا زالت تحت سيطرة ميليشيات الحوثي الإيرانية. لكن الإمارات تحتل وتسيطر بقرارها على 60% من 80% التي بيد الشرعية. إذن للأسف نحن بين مصيبتين، بين شرين: شر جماعة متغطرسة ترى من نفسها أنها هي الحاكمة وأن الله اختارها لتحكم الشعب اليمني بقوة السلاح، فصادرت الإعلام وصادرت الصحف واعتقلت أكثر من 20,000 معتقل من بيوتهم وليس من المعارك، وقتلت أكثر من 350 يعني معتقل تحت التعذيب، وتعتقل الآن أكثر من 35 صحفي، بعضهم يعني أصدرت قرارات بإعدامهم ولم ينفذ هذا القرار. دمرت المساجد، دمرت البيوت، يعني قتلت النساء والأطفال، كانت تقتل الآباء أمام أبنائهم. وفي الطرف الآخر عند الإمارات العربية المتحدة، وقد تكون بموافقة من السعودية كما يرى البعض بسكوتها وعدم توضيح دور أو موقف السعودية مما ترتكبه الإمارات. فأنشأت الإمارات، وسيتكلم عنها الصديق العزيز، أنشأت الإمارات ما يسمى بالحزام الأمني في مدينة عدن، وهذا حزام أمني خارج عن الجيش والنخبة الشبوانية والنخبة الحضرمية، يعني حوالي 90,000 مقاتل يستلمون مرتباتهم من الإمارات وليس من الشرعية، ويستمعون لأوامر الإمارات وليس للشرعية، بل منعت دخول الرئيس هادي والحكومة إلى عدن حتى هذه اللحظة. إذا اليمنيون الآن لا حوثي يعني تنازل من أجل مصلحة الشعب بل يرتكب الجرائم، ولا تحالف عربي أنقذ الشرعية وأعاد السلطة إلى صنعاء بحسب أهدافه الثلاثة التي لم يتحقق منها أي هدف. فلا عاصفة الحزن حسمت المعركة، ولا عاصفة الأمل أعادت الأمل للشعب اليمني. إذا الشعب اليمني يعيش في نكبة أن قرار الشرعية، قرار الحكومة الشرعية، مع كل أسف 90% من هذا القرار هو بيد التحالف العربي وليس بيد الشرعية، وهذا أضعف موقف السلطة الشرعية. وشوه التحالف العربي في المناطق التي تحت الشرعية للأسف لم يقدم فيها الخدمات، بل حصل فيها انقلابين في مدينة عدن من قبل ما يسمى بالمجلس الانتقالي المدعوم من الإمارات. والمصيبة الكبرى أن الإمارات التي يسميها اليمنيون أنها محتلة لليمن ذهبت إلى إيران وتكلمت أنها سوف انسحبت من اليمن، وهي لم تنسحب من اليمن، هي فقط إعادة تمويل، وذهبت تتصالح مع إيران. هي جاءت من أجل إرجاع الشرعية وإسقاط التمرد، ثم تدعم تمرد في عدن. انقلب على الشرعية في انقلابين، في شهر يناير 2018 وفي شهر أغسطس 2019. والآن لا عاصمة مؤقتة للشرعية. الآن الحكومة اليمنية لا توجد لها عاصمة الآن. العاصمة صنعاء تحت سيطرة ميليشيات الحوثي المدعومة إماراتيا، وهي التي دعمت قبل ذلك من بعض دول الخليج العربي من أجل القضاء على الإسلام السياسي أو إيجاد صراع يسمى بين السنة والشيعة، ولم ينجحوا في ذلك. وأصبح الآن الصراع بين يعني جماعة متمردة وسلطة شرعية معترف بها محليا وإقليميا ودوليا. لكن مشكلتنا أيضا مع المصيبتين، مصيبة الحوثي ومصيبة الإمارات التي أنشأت المجلس الانتقالي وأنشأت يعني جيش خارج عن إطار الدولة، أن لدينا شرعية لا تملك القرار السياسي بيدها. الجيش اليمني على أبواب مدينة صنعاء في منطقة اسمها نهم، لا يبعد بابين نهم والعاصمة صنعاء سوى 30 كيلومتر. يعني بالمدفع أو الدبابة ممكن أن تضرب وتصل إلى وسط مدينة صنعاء، لكن هناك خط أحمر على الجيش اليمني ألا يتقدم نحو صنعاء. الأكثر خطورة الآن أن الإمارات الآن يعني تدعم الساحل الغربي المتمثل بالقائد طارق محمد صالح الذي كان الحارس الشخصي لعلي عبد الله صالح رئيس اليمن السابق. وتدعم المجلس الانتقالي. وهناك خطة الآن من قبل الإمارات مع المجلس الانتقالي مع جيش ما يسمى بالحراس الجمهورية المدعوم من الإمارات الذي يتواجد الآن في الساحل الغربي بالتخطيط مع الحوثيين للانقلاب على الشرعية في حضرموت وفي شمال. إذا خلاصة الموضوع أن اليمن للأسف الشديد شرعية ضعيفة، تحالف غير صادق وغير جاد في الحسم العسكري، ووضع الإنساني في مأساة، بل صنف الوضع في اليمن أنه هو الأول على مستوى العالم من ناحية إنسانية. كل ذلك والعالم يتفرج، بل للأسف أن العالم الغربي والأمم المتحدة متواطئة مع الإمارات العربية المتحدة بحكم المال، ومتواطئة مع ميليشيات الحوثي الإيرانية. والمبعوث الأممي إلى اليمن للأسف الشديد لم يقدم شيء للقضية اليمنية، بل أنه يشجع في كثير من المواقف ما ترتكبه ميليشيات الحوثي الإيرانية في حق اليمنيين. فلهم الذين طبقوا اتفاقيات السويد لا فيما يتعلق بالأسرى ولا فيما يتعلق بتسليم ميناء الحديدة للشرعية، ولا فيما يتعلق بتسليم السلاح الثقيل للدولة بحكم القرار 22/16 اللي صدر من مجلس الأمن. قرارات صدرت في حق اليمنيين، لكن للأسف لم ينفذ من هذه القرارات أي شيء. إذا نحن في اليمن للأسف نعيش مأساة، هذه المأساة قد تستمر طويلا، وكلما طالت الحرب ليس لمصلحة اليمنيين ولا لمصلحة الحوثيين، بل لمصلحة التحالف العربي الذي للأسف الشديد يريد أن يبقى اليمن في صراع، ويبقى اليمن ممزق، ويبقى اليمن ضعيف. فقد ضرب القوة العسكرية التي أخذها الحوثي من النظام علي عبد الله صالح الذي قتله الحوثي. رئيس النظام السابق تحالف مع الحوثي، ومع هذا الحوثي قتله، والتحالف دمر كل القوة العسكرية. والآن للأسف عندنا جيش يمني صحيح، ولكن جيش يمني بدون سلاح حد. هكذا يراد للجيش اليمني أن يبقى بدون سلاح كي يبقى ضعيفا ولا يستطيع الحسم العسكري. التحالف لم يدعم الجيش اليمني بسلاح، ولا هو الذي أعطى الجيش اليمني أو سمح له بأن يتقدم في الجبهة. له على أبواب مدينة صنعاء 2 ولم يقدم شيء. إذا نحن أيها السادة والسيدات نعيش مأساة إنسانية وعسكرية واحتلال من قبل الإمارات، وبرضا وتوافق من قبل المملكة العربية السعودية التي طالبها اليمنيون أن تصدر موقفا واضحا مما ترتكبه الإمارات في حق اليمن. وفي اعتقادي بأن الحل في اليمن لن يكون إلا حلا عسكريا، بأن تحسم المعركة عسكريا ضد ميليشيات الحوثي المدعومة إيرانيا، وأن يتم الاستغناء عن الإمارات، وأن تحدد السعودية موقفها من التحالف العربي. أنت جئت كتحالف لإعادة الشرعية وإنهاء التمرد، ثم تدعم تمرد في مدينة عدن المسمى بالمجلس الانتقالي، وأنت بهذا تسحب عنك بساط الشرعية، شرعية التحالف. الرئيس هادي للأسف الشديد في كل هذه الأحداث لم يظهر إلى الملأ ولم يتكلم بكلمة، لا في الانقلاب الأول الذي حدث في العاصمة المؤقتة عدن، ولا في الانقلاب الثاني. وكان هدف هذه الانقلابات في مدينة عدن من قبل المجلس الانتقالي المدعوم من الإمارات ليس الانفصال في اليمن، في ظني ليس الانفصال في اليمن، ومن باب إشراكه بقوة السلاح في حكم اليمن. والآن هناك يعني ضغط على الحكومة الشرعية أن تحاول المجلس الانتقالي من أجل إشراكه في السلطة. ذهبت الدماء وسالت الدماء في الشوارع وارتكبت الإمارات، لكن أبشركم حتى لا ننظر إلى ما يحدث في اليمن بنظرة سوداوية، لكن هذا هو الواقع. لكن من المبشرات بأن الإمارات التي يعني أنشأت هذه الكيانات الميليشاوية الخارجة عن الدولة في 4 سنوات، يعني هذه كلها ذهبت في 4 ساعات عندما ضربت في شبوة ولقنها الجيش اليمني درسا قاسيا، فما كان من الإمارات إلا أن استخدمت الطيران وضربت الجيش اليمني واتهمت الجيش اليمني بأنه إرهابي، وهو الجيش الذي كانت الإمارات ترعاه وتدربه، وكان الحكومة اليمنية والشرعية اليمنية والجيش اليمني كلهم إرهابيون. البشارة الأخرى أيضا أن الشعب اليمني حدد موقفه من الإمارات. الشعب ومجلس النواب والحكومة والرئيس صراحة أعلنوها بأن الإمارات دولة محتلة وأن عليها أن تطرد أو تخرج من التحالف العربي في اليمن، وأن هناك الآن ملفات جاهزة لعرضها في الأمم المتحدة على الجرائم التي ارتكبتها الإمارات. إذن أخيرا أقول بأن الوضع في اليمن يعني يقع بين شر ميليشيات الحوثي الإيرانية، وهي أس المشكلة وسبب المشكلة والتي جلبت الويلات وجلبت التحالف العربي لليمن، وبين شر التحالف العربي الذي يحارب اليمن وخرج عن الأهداف التي جاء من أجلها ولم يصدق في الحسم العسكري. وكان يقول قائد التحالف العربي آنذاك أنه قادر أن يحسم معركة في 2 شهرين، والآن لنا 5 سنوات ولم تحسم معركة. والمصيبة الثالثة والإشكالية الثالثة في اليمن أننا أيضا أمام شرعية ضعيفة، ليس القرار لم يعد القرار السيادي والسياسي والعسكري بيدها. وفي اعتقادي بأن الحل في اليمن سيكون حلا عسكريا، لأن الحل السياسي سيكون حلا مؤقتا وسينفجر الوضع عسكريا. إذا تم الحل السياسي سينفجر الوضع عسكريا في أي وقت، لأن بالحل السياسي سيظل السلاح الثقيل بيد ميليشيات الحوثي، وسيظل السلاح الثقيل والحديث بيد المجلس الانتقالي والميليشيات التي أنشأتها الإمارات العربية المتحدة. نحن كيمنيين نريد دولة ضامنة لكل أبناء اليمن بكل فئاتهم وأطيافهم وأحزابهم، ونرفض أي عصابة أو جماعة تخرج عن إطار الدولة. شكرا جزيلا.
Brother Salih Al-Ghazi. He gave a very broad picture of the conflict in Yemen. And now we have our speaker from the UK, Jonathan Fenton Harvey. He is a freelance journalist who has done his studies in Exeter University. So please, Jonathan.
Thank you, Ismail. So thank you, Ismail, and thank you for Orsam for the reception. So as a researcher, one of the things I focused on particularly with Yemen is the geopolitics of the country. The thing that drew me to it was actually how closely the UK and the US and other Western powers like France were involved in the conflict. So that drew my attention to it, and since then I realised that both the countries mostly involved in the conflict from a geopolitical perspective, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, have their own ambitions in the country which they are pursuing under the pretext of stability in Yemen. So on the one hand, they say they are trying to counter an Iran proxy and restore legitimacy to Yemen. That was their reason for intervening in the conflict in March 2015. But if you actually look closely at what they've been doing since then, you can see that they have their own interests in the country. They are diverging obviously there's been a lot more focus on how their interests are quite different and how that could strain their alliance, particularly after the Aden coup from the Southern Transitional Council in August 10th. However, that will not be enough to separate their alliance, and I will explain why as I go along. Mostly I'll be focusing on the United Arab Emirates role, because I believe that has gotten a lot less international attention compared to what Saudi Arabia has been doing. And that's understandable because obviously in March 2015, Saudi Arabia led a coalition of different countries, different Arab and African states. And that's what it's been referred to as then. If you look at Western media, for example, you'll often see talk of the Saudi-led coalition intervening in Yemen. So obviously with terminology like that, it's clear that the focus will be on Saudi Arabia, which is understandable because they have committed, according to the United Nations, they've committed at least, well, just over 60% of the recorded deaths in Yemen. So that shows that they have a lot of responsibility for the casualties. But the United Arab Emirates is playing an increasingly provocative role in the country, an assertive role, which I think will come more to light in the future. For now, because of the lack of attention towards what the country has been doing, they have been able to push forward in their aims, which has allowed them enough freedom to support the Southern Transitional Council and related militias to it to achieve their wider geopolitical aims of dividing Yemen, gaining greater influence in the country, which is not just linked to Yemen, but their wider geopolitical ambitions, where they want to create a geopolitical empire, effectively, reaching from the Horn of Africa to the Indian Ocean, and establish themselves as a dominant regional power, an economic powerhouse, with ties to the international powers. So that's their aim. Basically, when Saudi Arabia intervened in Yemen in March 2016, the UAE joined them. The aim of the coalition was to reinstate the Hadi government, but if you look at the history before that, you can see that there were differences between the Hadi government and the UAE. Obviously, there's been more focus on it since the Aden coup in August, but one of the things that happened was that the UAE had, like I said, the UAE wants to expand its maritime global trade, where the city of Aden is really essential for it. So that's why it's supporting the Southern Transitional Council. And one of the issues with that is they had investments with the Dubai port in the year 2006. Ali Abdullah Saleh gave them permission to have access to the port city, so they can increase their trade. So they have good ties then. Obviously, after the Arab Spring, that changed the political dynamics of the situation in the country considerably. And when President Hadi came to power, he actually removed these ties, the influence that the UAE had. So President Hadi was an obstacle to the UAE. And also, he gave more freedom for Al-Islah to operate in the country. So that shows that he was giving more freedom to, which was effectively against the wishes of the country. Because obviously, if you look at what the UAE's been targeting Al-Islah for, obviously they're considered the linked to the Muslim Brotherhood in Yemen, or their political Islamists. This needs to be understood in the wider context of the UAE's crackdown on Islamists across the Middle East and North Africa region. So Hadi gave more representation to Al-Islah in the Yemeni government, and then that really restricted what the UAE was trying to do. So they effectively expanded their own militia presence in the country after joining the Saudi-led coalition. So Saudi Arabia was effectively focusing on a bombing campaign in the north of the country, and it recruited mercenaries. It used Sudanese mercenaries and mercenaries from other countries as well, such as Pakistan, and it relied on the air force of different countries like Morocco. Obviously, this support is scaling back, and it is still minor. Like I said, mostly the two actors that need focus and consideration in Yemen are Saudi Arabia and the UAE. I believe the term coalition is actually a guise for them. It gives their military actions more legitimacy. So while Saudi Arabia was focusing on the north of the country, the UAE was tasked with supporting militias across the south. It aimed to push the Houthis out of the south with its militia presence And obviously they succeeded in that because the Houthis did expand quite prematurely. And it was easy for them to push them out of Aden, even though they've been quite concentrated in the north of the country now. So it shows that made it easier for the United Arab Emirates. They had a straightforward path compared to Saudi Arabia, who has tried to defeat the Houthis with a bombing campaign, which it believed it would succeed in a matter of weeks, which obviously didn't suit their, which obviously didn't work out for them. So the UAE had gradually expanded its presence in the south, and it aimed to effectively create an independent southern secessionist state. There are different debates about what it's trying to do, but if the UAE had a government there that was friendly to its own interests, it would be easy for the country to gain more access to the country's resources and the port city. So there have been slightly different aims from Saudi Arabia and the UAE. They have obviously focused on quite different areas in the country. There is a bit of crossover between the two, and I will get to that a bit later, but for now, it's important to focus on what their real aims are rather than the pretext they're going for. So obviously Saudi Arabia tried to... Okay, so obviously Saudi Arabia tried to defeat the Houthis militarily with its air force, but it's failed in that. Obviously Saudi Arabia lacked a real understanding of Yemeni society and the terrain, so the Houthis, they were well used to fighting the outside forces and the Yemeni government. They've been doing it since the year 2004 with their Sadr wars against Ali Abdullah Saleh. So Saudi Arabia was not able to defeat them easily. So that obviously made it impossible for Saudi Arabia to achieve their aims. So instead they targeted state infrastructure and food supplies to grind the Houthis into submission. What that actually did though, that broke down Yemen's society and state a lot more. Not only was it weakened initially because Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi was exiled after the Houthi insurgency and he was living in Riyadh. There was obviously no legitimacy from that, and also the state was completely collapsed, and this obviously generated a significant humanitarian crisis at the same time. So that made it more easy for other groups inside the country to expand further. And that actually gave, even though the UAE's policies in the country are different from what Saudi Arabia is doing, and they do have diverging interests, Saudi Arabia's badly thought out intervention had actually given the United Arab Emirates more freedom and more impunity to carry out their campaign in the country. So obviously the UAE, the reason why it has been able to expand more in the country is because it does have a lot of impunity. Like I said earlier, much of the focus has been on what Saudi Arabia is doing in the country, and there is much more comparative silence to the UAE's role. Obviously there has been debates within the United States Congress and the UK Parliament as to why they should stop supporting Saudi Arabia militarily in the conflict because of the humanitarian crisis that has generated because of it. And obviously that's tied to Saudi Arabia, but not so much is focused with the UAE's actions, which could create further destabilisation in the country, and it already is. But in the long term, now that their proxies are succeeding in the country more, it is likely that they will have further success in the country in the long term, but in the short term, it will create further divisions by the looks of it. So with the UAE, there has been some awareness about it, but mostly it has been limited. For example, as we were talking about the airstrikes on government forces in the country, after the Aden coup was reversed, there was a counter coup by the government forces. That was obviously ignored by the international community, and there was less attention about that. Obviously some of the human rights abuses, which are less talked about from the United Arab Emirates, they occur, but not much is done to actually follow through on it. For example, with the militias that the UAE backs, even though they're there under the pretext of fighting the Houthis and restoring stability to Yemen, also with the counter-terrorism campaign, That's a big thing to look at as well, because the UAE says it is in Yemen to largely fight Al-Qaeda as well. And in the era of the war on terror, which was started by the United States, more countries have freedom to carry out actions like this, to pursue their own interests under the guise of fighting terrorism. So that has made it more easy for the UAE to intervene in Yemen. Its militias, with a so-called counter-terrorism campaign against Al-Qaeda, have actually carried out human rights abuses across the south. They have established a network of prisons, which has been revealed by organisations like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch and Associated Press. And there have been a wide range of abuses in these prisons, such as torture, some very barbaric methods. The pretext for doing this is that it's against Al-Qaeda, but really many people who haven't been linked to the organisation have been abused in these prisons. It has been arbitrary. That's what Human Rights Watch said, that these arrests are often arbitrary without any evidence. But this is all for the sake of the UAE-backed forces establishing themselves as prominent and strong in the country, so they can help the Southern Transitional Council achieve its aims of secession. And Western countries have been involved in this significantly. One thing I've researched a lot is the United States ties with the UAE's interests in South Yemen. Obviously, the United Arab Emirates receives weapons from the USA, as well as the UK. And obviously, with the US support for the UAE, it gives them more freedom to intervene, because the US has trained UAE fighters, and as also US weapons have been seen in the hands of UAE-backed militias. So this shows that US support is directly facilitating this occupation of South Yemen. So at the same time, the UAE has been getting closer towards other countries in the United Nations, the permanent members of the UN Security Council. It has been courting Russia and China at the same time. So that shows that there is going to be absolute silence to what the United Arab Emirates is doing in the country. It will have complete impunity, and even there has been talk of how Russia could potentially support the case for an independent South Yemen. This is looking more probable. It would revive the old Soviet Union ties in the country. And obviously, as the UAE and Russia have supported different actors across the Middle East region, as Russia has openly supported the Assad regime in Syria, the UAE at the same time has been opening its arms to Bashar al-Assad again, and in Sudan as well. Both countries have tried to support the military council to stop the revolution, to stop all democratic hopes in that country. So it shows their foreign policies are becoming increasingly aligned, so we could expect to see Russia take a more prominent role in the country. It could play more of a balancing act, but it is likely at the same time that if the STC do become more powerful after their latest coup, then they will be able to be a more prominent actor which Russia could support. I think in the long term, because the UAE has acted under the smokescreen of what Saudi Arabia has done, it has allowed the United Arab Emirates to have a better position to establish its influence. So Saudi Arabia basically has limited, if any, influence in the country now. Only this nominal government, which has no authority, whereas the UAE, obviously, is becoming more pragmatic in its foreign policy, so it is likely they will have a better position in the future of the country. I don't think this will bring any kind of stable organisation to the south. Obviously, that's what the UAE is doing. It's trying to create a framework for an independent southern state. But there will be divisions because the UAE does not understand Yemeni society significantly. There has already been a lot of opposition from other southern groups towards the Southern Transitional Council. So this is something we could expect to see more of, more opposition towards the STC. So this could lead to a longer, drawn-out, protracted war in the country. And then there will be anything but stability there. it is likely that it would be generating a worse humanitarian crisis. More people would suffer as a result of this because of what the United Arab Emirates is trying to achieve through its proxies, but at the same time, it could see, the UAE does not look like it's set to disappear from intervening in Yemen anytime soon. It is going to be one of the most influential forces in the country for the near future, unless there is more awareness about what the country is doing from within the West and other countries that support it. There have been cases or movements to support ending Western military support to Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and more of this needs to actually take place. This needs to become a bigger cause to actually bring more hopes for peace in Yemen. And as the previous speaker said, there needs to be more dialogue. There cannot be a military solution to this country. Only by actually giving Yemeni factions and people themselves the voice to assert their own desires or the chance to do that can there be hopes for peace in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan, for the presentation. Now we have Dr. Selim Öztürk, is assistant professor at the Police Academy here in Ankara, and he's focusing on security issues with a focus on the Middle East. So, Dr. Selim, please.
I want to focus on the infrastructural causes and the reasons behind the Yemeni civil war and the Houthi rise. I will touch upon the historical cases why this crisis emerged and how this get larger and larger in the region. For example, the first actor who is calling or intervening in the affairs of the region seems to be Saudi Arabia, when we look at the matter. And then the other actor, we can say that Iran, because of their support to Houthi revolters there. And then the third actor in the recent years emerged. Which one? The United Arab Emirates. Right now, when we look at the developments, we saw a cleavage between past cooperators. Saudi Arabia and Emirates were the allies, but right now they have problems among themselves because of the power share in the country. But the Saudis, when we look at the matter, we think that there are a sectarian solidarity between Yemeni Sunnis and Saudis. But it is not true, because Saudi Arabia is a very realpolitik country. Then we look at during the 1960s, Saudi Arabia supported the Zaydi Imamate, monarchical state there, against the revolutionary forces supported by Nasser, as you know, maybe Yemeni people know. And Zaydi Imamate was supported and financed by Saudi King Faisal. And then also Mohammed Reza Pahlavi, the ruler of Iran, supported together with Faisal to Zaydi Imamate. But the revolutionary forces toppled the monarchy. Saudi supported this monarchy because they are also monarchy, and the monarchical solidarity was in the region. And then, but also there is a historical problem between Yemenis and the Saudis. Ibn Saud, during the 1930s, annexed Najran, Jizan, and then one Asir. The three provinces were annexed by the Saudi Arabia, and they made a treaty with Imam Muhammad Bedr, as far as I know. Every 20 years, this treaty will be renewed. And then Ibn Saud gave advice to his sons and said that keep Yemen weak every time, because it is more populated than Saudi Arabia, and there is a territorial problem between them. It can pose a threat in future if they can't be under control. But it's a monarchy. Then during the, for example, during the revolutionary wave, it expanded all over the Middle East. Saudi Arabia had to support a monarchy, although it was a Zaydi originally, also the different sectarian originality. It is not important for the Saudi Arabia. When we come to the 1980s and 1990s, as you know, Saudi Arabia started a Salafi Wahhabi cultural expansionist policy under the King Faisal rule, and during the King Khalid and King Fahd rule, this policy continued. And Salafi expansion began to be effective in the northern provinces of Yemen, especially among Houthi, Zaydi tribes and the Zaydi regions, Sa'de governorate. Salafi schools, Salafi mosques started to be opened, and Saleh government was a big government economically, as you know, financially, needed Saudi financial aid, so he kept silent against the Salafi expansionist policies. And the Houthis began to be disturbed against these ultra-Salafi expansionist culturalist policies among the Zaydi regions. On the other side, the influence of Iran in the beginning of the 1980s started. For example, Bedrettin Houthi was one of the leaders of the Zaydi society there. Also, I want to give an information. Bedrettin Houthi fled to Riyadh during the Yemeni civil war in 1960s, for example. But during the 1980s, Bedrettin Houthi took education in Qum city with his sons Hussein and Abdul Malik, and affiliated to, not directly affiliated, but he got influenced by the revolutionary ideas of Iranian regime. And then he founded Shabab al-Muslimin group. It looked like Hezbollah group a bit, because they organized like Hezbollah in terms of civil society, health institution, and then social solidarity and giving aid to the poor people. And they tried to take the same slogans with Hezbollah. For example, death to America, death to Israel. Israel is very far from Yemen, but they used the same slogans. And the Iranization, maybe I can say, started among the Zaydi society. But Zaydi sectarian group is more close to Sunnis rather than the 12 Shia. But both Saudi Arabia and Iran imposed their own cultural expansionist and the ideological expansionist policies over the Yemen. They chose the Yemen as a battlefield. As you know, in the history also, Yemen became a battlefield in the deep historical First Ages times between Sassanids and the Byzantines. As you know, the story of the Abraha and the issues. Yemen always was a strategic place for the regional powers. And then when we come to the early 20s, the year 2004, sorry, Hussein Houthi started a revolt against the Ali Abdullah Salih government. Ali Abdullah Salih was also Zaydi originally, but he was more Basis and the Arab secular and nationalist person, and he became also a very pragmatic person. He can also work with Saudi Arabia and support Saddam Hussein in the Gulf War, and he can do everything. And he can use the internal dynamics. As you know, also people say him Junior Saddam, as you know. But he suppressed Zaydi population, the Houthi movement there. What is the Houthi? Houthi are the family, just a family, but the supporters of the Zaydi tribes, from the Zaydi tribes, when they continue their support to this family, the sons of Bedrettin Houthi, the other tribes, Zaydi tribes, also called as Houthi, and the Houthi concept became a common concept. And 6 wars happened between Ali Abdullah Salih and Houthi movement. In the end, the Houthi movement took power in the northern areas. Then Arab Spring hit Yemen in 2011. This movement, also Houthi movement, could be taken taken under control. And all the northern, as you know, provinces went under the control of Houthis. Also, Ali Abdullah Saleh couldn't suppress the Arab Spring protests, and Saudi Arabia, as you know, was more powerful than incumbent regime, Ali Abdullah Saleh regime in Yemen. So he involved in the internal politics of Yemen, and he changed the system. The Gulf Initiative, the Gulf Cooperation Council gathered and decided that Ali Abdullah Saleh was out and his Vice President Hadi should came to power. And this second intervention of Saudi Arabia again in the affairs of Yemen destroyed every stability and order in Yemen. Ali Abdullah Saleh began supporting the Houthis. For example, when we look at the newspapers and the news, we think that Iran is giving so much support to these Houthis, and Houthis became stronger and stronger. Iran's support was not so high and was not so strong when we compared Iranian support with Hezbollah and groups in Iraq or the Syria, because directly Iranian military went to Syria and then Iraq and directly involved in the matters. But in Yemen, there is not an Iranian military force or strong force, just Hezbollah trainers. And then some generals from the Iranian army went there and supplied arms. But the Houthis, in itself, is a real power there, because during 1,000 years, this Zaydi Imamate, Zaydi society ruled this area. They had historical roots, and they had a potential to rule the region. Without Iranian support, Houthis can also be successful again and cannot be suppressed easily. But without Saudi support, Mansur Hadi, it is very difficult for Mansur Hadi to maintain his rule there. It's an open and very clear issue. When we look at the third actor in the region, the Emirates, it's also another player, and when Ali Abdullah Saleh and Houthi coalition moved to Sana'a and captured Sana'a and then moved to Aden, Mansur Hadi had to flee in 2014, as far as I know. And 1 year later, on March 2015, Saudi Arabia and Emirates led an Arab coalition, Sunni Arab coalition, towards Yemen against the Houthi and Saleh coalition. And but they couldn't be so successful because they couldn't take Sana'a back. Until now, the war is continuing, and this Houthi movement couldn't be defeated. Also, the issues in the country is very complex, because while Ali Abdullah Saleh was cooperating with the Houthi movement, supported, backed by Iran, as we know, his son Ahmed Saleh started working with the Emirates. You know, Emirates appointed him to Yemen as an ambassador. This is so complex, the issues of Arabs, as you know, you are also Arabs, you know. It's very, very complex issues, mixed issues, and you can't find sometimes meaningful things when you look at the cases. Ali Abdullah Saleh was killed because he suddenly decided that he wanted to side with Emirates. On the convoy, his car convoy, he was hit by the Houthis. And then the Emirates, for example, while they were cooperating with the Saudis, they started to follow another secret agenda. They wanted to separate the country, southern Yemen, from the north, while they seem to good ally with the Saudi, and they seem to protect the country against the Iranian influence. But in this backstage, they tried to support southern separatists, the Southern Transitional Council, to separate the country. And people generally don't understand this, because there is a growth of colonialism nowadays in the world. For example, during the 19th century, we saw the Western colonialism, but this colonialism issue right now is inherited by these oil-rich Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates today. can make investments and direct some organizations and get involved in the internal affairs of the countries, and they create problems, or they create their own fractions, and they try to rule and create their satellite formations and states. In this issue, in Yemen, the United Emirates wanted to create its own satellite state in southern Yemen. And how it's trying to do that? By supporting the Salafi groups, by supporting financing some Salafi tribes. Firstly, Salafizing, ideologizing them, and then giving financial aid, and then giving arms, and they try to have a war with Mansur Hadi's forces. For example, in Aden, they made many armed conflicts. Okay. When I look at I want to also contribute. When we look at the United Arab Emirates decision over Yemen issue and separatism issue, we see the internal dynamic within the United Arab Emirates army, who are the Yemeni military high-ranking military officials. This group are the sons of feudal lords during the Marxist era during the Democratic Republic of South Yemen. When socialists made a revolt there in 1967, the sons of the families of feudal lords and people took exile in United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, and their sons entered the military army of United Arab Emirates. Today, these families and these military officials had connections and the links with the tribal structure in Yemen, southern Yemen, and they try to influence the state mind of United Arab Emirates to separate the southern from the strong north part. In the end, both Iran and the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia try to play a role and try to direct the issues in the country on their own interests. But if the cleavage rose increased between Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, the Iran maybe will be the winner without paying so much and spending so much and not getting so much weak.
Thank you, Dr. Selim. He touched upon the ideological also roots of the conflict in Yemen, also role of the domestic and international matters. So, if you have any questions, comments, please, you are welcome. Yes.
Can I ask this, Mr. Salim?
Can you introduce also?
My name is Iman. I think this is misunderstanding. What is Houthi movement? Another question: what is the difference between Houthi and ISIS and Qaeda? And what's the difference about Houthi and PKK and Fatahullah Gulen? This is the same. Houthi tourism, it is tourism movement, not Houthi like party, like Islam, like nothing. We have in Yemen, we have tourism movement. I want that.
So he commented that Houthi,
like PKK, like but
so we need some clarifications on that. Yes, maybe we can take another question and then we continue. You can.
First, I would like to thank you for coming here and showing your interest about the Yemen situation. I'm Suhaib from Yemen. As a citizen who lived more than 20 years in Saada city, I lived through the Houthis, I lived through the Salafis, and I also was a member of the Spring Revolution. I just want to say something. I heard all of you speak, and it's wonderful, but all of you have pointed that you are kind of doing the blame on Emirates. We agree, Emirates is bad and all what they're doing is bad. But can't we blame ourselves? For example, through the decades of Abdullah Saleh governor, Emirates has their agendas, and they actually rented the harbor of Aden and they closed it for their own revenues. The same thing with the tribes leaders in Marib, Al Job, and others. They used to receive salaries from them. So we know all of this. Saudi Arabia, as you mentioned, they helped the royal family before the revolution of 1960s. So how can we expect good from the bad? Can't we blame ourselves? Can't we blame the whole world for being silent for someone like this to involve in people's lives? How many people die in Yemen daily? While we know those people what their agendas before, hundreds and maybe hundreds of years ago. Why are we still expecting good things from them? Aren't we wrong about that? And at the same time as well, my second question. It's good to spread awareness about the situation and ask about justice, but what should we do?
Okay, please.
No, well, I fully respect your first question about the point of, you should look inwards towards what Yemeni society is doing. I mean, that's not for me to say as someone from Britain who focuses on what my country is doing in football, in particularly its support for Saudi Arabia and the UAE. So that is definitely a good point to have. And like I said, that's why the conflict or the political solution itself should be left up to Yemenis themselves to decide. And I look at how the outside interference in the country is just worsening this more. So while these problems might have existed in the first place, I think if you look at a lot of regional actors, their points would have actually worsened the crisis more. And sorry, what was could you remind me of the second?
First,
the second one.
The second one was the solution.
The second thing
What
is
should we do?
what should be done? What must be done?
Well, like I said, as someone from the UK, I'm looking at particularly how my government can help improve the situation more. So I've done some work on how trying to influence UK politicians to actually push all the countries involved that they have ties with to pushing for a better solution. So that's one thing that should be looked at. Obviously, it needs more of an international solution for this, since the conflict is quite international. So a lot of the backers of the countries that are involved need to actually take a more positive and diplomatic stance on the conflict. And like I said before, obviously a lot of what's going on in the country should be left up to the people there themselves to decide. That is a key point. The more you actually intervene in the conflict and use military means, it is really going to worsen what is going on, and it will make their hopes for diplomacy more remote. So it is really important to actually push for an end to the conflict first as a starting point. I know there will be more work to do, and I recognise, even though I do focus on the UAE and Saudi Arabia's role a lot in the country, I recognise that even if the two did withdraw, the problems wouldn't suddenly go away. But it would be a big step towards solving them. So that's why I focus on that a lot.
Yeah, and for the first question, remember?
My question is
Secretary
why America not like Houthi tourism, like Daesh, like Qaeda?
tourism.
And tourism, yeah. And Turkey, not why it is like Islah Party. Why don't see like PKK, like Fatah Gula? This is my question.
Why United States?
Why United States and Turkey?
Why don't they consider the Houthi militants as a terrorist act in Yemen? Why do they consider them like Islah Party or other parties, like PKK, Fatah Gula? These are considered in Security Council as terrorist groups. Why don't they consider Houthis as one of these?
Well, just one point I wanted to make. I mean, you have had different people in the Trump administration say that we need to support Saudi Arabia in Yemen because these are an Iran proxy. So that's actually used as a justification to involve themselves in the war. And Obviously, they have committed a lot of destabilising actions. I'm not focusing on that. I'm not denying that or anything. They have created a lot of destabilisation in the country, so it's up for other people, particularly Yemenis, to address the issue of the Houthis themselves. And I recognise that there were protests against the organisation as well, so that's why I think declaring war on the country in Yemen, particularly Saudi Arabia's policies, they have destabilised the country more. They have removed a central authority, so that has actually helped the Houthis in a way. And it's put them closer to Iran. So while we should recognise that they are a bad force, I think we should recognise that the conflict itself has done a lot of damage, so we need to take more sensible and diplomatic measures in actually solving the crisis.
شكرا جزيلا. المشكلة في اليمن اليمنيون كانوا في حوار وطني، وقبل الحوار كان في قام اليمنيون بثورة شبابية عام 2011 شارك فيها حتى الحوثي، ثم أقيم مؤتمر حوار وطني شهد له العالم، وحضر أمين الأمم المتحدة في آخر يوم الحوار الوطني، شارك في مؤتمر الحوار الوطني كل الأحزاب السياسية بما فيها جماعة الحوثي، واتفق الناس على الدستور. لكن من الذي خالف الإجماع وخرج وحمل السلاح على الدولة؟ إنها جماعة الحوثي الإرهابية المدعومة بالإمارات من إيران. إذا نحن كنا في حوار وطني، وكان في إجماع، وكان في دستور، وتم اختطاف مسؤول الدستور، ملف الدستور الذي كان سيحمله إلى الرئيس هادي للتوقيع عليه. إذا لا ننسى أس المشكلة أن جماعة الحوثي انقلبت، كانت يعني في ساحة التغيير، وكانت وشاركت في مؤتمر الحوار الوطني، ولكن في الخلف كانت تحمل السلاح وتهاجم على معسكرات الدولة. فالذي أوصل البلاد إلى هذه هي جماعة الحوثي. الأمر الثاني، الإمارات يعني على توافق مع الحوثي في الشمال ومع القاعدة للأسف الشديد في المحافظة الجنوبية. هناك يعني تقارير دولية تبين بأن الإمارات على تواصل مع تنظيم القاعدة، متى ما شاءت حركت هذا الملف، سواء القاعدة أو ما يسمى بتنظيم داعش. يقبلوا في اليمن لا عندنا جماعة يعني داعش أو الجماعة الدولة الإسلامية. هناك بعض العناصر أفراد القاعدة كان علي عبد الله صالح يعني يمارس الابتزاز على دول الخليج وعلى دول العالم ويستلم مبالغ من أجل القضاء على ما يسمى بالقاعدة. أريد أن أوضح فقط لبعض الزملاء، الحرب في اليمن ليست حرب أهلية. الحرب في اليمن هي حرب بين جماعة انقلبت على دولة، يعني بين جماعة متمردة على دولة، مثل ما هنا في تركيا منظمة بيكيكا الإرهابية ضد دولة معترف بها عالميا، والرئيس هادي والحكومة الشرعية معترف بها إقليميا ودوليا، يعني ما زالت دولة. لا نقول أنه لا يوجد دولة في اليمن، يوجد دولة. صحيح أن مقرها في الرياض، صحيح أن قرارها لم يعد بيدها بنسبة 100%، لكن لا زال هناك اسم الدولة الذي نتشبث به ونتمسك به ونحرص عليه، لأنه بدون دولة تتحول البلاد إلى عصابات وإلى ميليشيات خارجة عن إطار الدولة. الحوثي أخيرا، الحوثي هو استولى على سلاح دولتين، على سلاح ما كان يسمى بالجمهورية العربية اليمنية، وعلى سلاح دولة ما كان يسمى باليمن الديمقراطي. يعني جيشين اجتمعا وسلم علي عبد الله صالح رئيس النظام السابق، سلم الجيش للحوثي لينتقم معا من خرجوا عليه في ثورة 2011. فالحوثي حتى وإن يعني دعمته إيران في البداية كما قلت بسلاح قليل، لكن امتلك سلاح دولتين، سلاح دولة. لكن للأسف هذا السلاح نسبة 80% دمر تماما من قبل التحالف العربي، ولا يراد أن يكون هناك جيش يمني قوي يمتلك سلاح حديث للأسف، لأن هناك غير رضا عن هذا الجيش من قبل التحالف العربي.
Thank you. We can have two other questions. Please first.
I'm Ayşenur. I'm not Yemeni, but I'm keen on Yemen. and I write my things about Yemen wars. I have two questions, first one for Harvey and second one for Mr. Öztürk. First, no one talks about Al Mahram. In a few months ago, there was protest against Saudi president. So I want to ask about that. What does Saudi Arabia do in Al Mahram and why it is in there? I want to understand that. And the second question is about United Arab Emirates. Can we say because of Southern problem, is there a problem or Cold War between Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates in the future? And can we say United Arab Emirates will be like next Qatar in the future because of this problem?
مؤسسة الدول العربية. اليمن معروفة عبر التاريخ لم يستطيع أي قوة خارجية احتلال اليمن. نعرف عبد الناصر في عام 1962 خسر 50,000 جندي في اليمن ولم يستطع دخول اليمن. أنا تمنيت من حضراتكم إنه التركيز على الدولة الإيرانية. إيران هي من تفتخر بأنها تحتل 4 عواصم عربية، ليس السعودية وليس الإمارات. أنا لست هنا في صدد الدفاع عن الإمارات والسعودية، بالتأكيد هناك أخطاء كبيرة ارتكبتها هذه الدولتين في اليمن، لكن بالنهاية هذه الدولتين تريد إنهاء الحرب، خاصة المملكة العربية السعودية نتيجة الأوضاع الحالية فيها أخيرا. فالدور الإيراني هو الدور الأخطر الموجود في اليمن. بدأ قبل 2009 قبل 2011 دعمت إيران الحراك الجنوبي، دعمت الحوثيين. السؤال الثاني عن موضوع الحراك الجنوبي، هل تستغله الإمارات؟ نرى بعض المظاهرات الموجودة في عدن وبعض المحافظات الجنوبية تطالب بالانفصال. هل هذه الأمور حقيقية؟ هناك دعوات للانفصال في اليمن أم غير حقيقية؟
Thank you very much. I would like to ask one question to Jonathan and my Yemeni friend. I think that I would slightly disagree with your statement that Saudi Arabia did not have understanding of Yemeni society. Rather, I would say that Saudi Arabia is one of the countries which have the best knowledge of the Yemeni society, and they have been the part of Yemeni politics and social processes for a long, long time. So it will be a bit of undermining the Saudi intelligence in Yemen. And on the basis of that, I would like to say that the main collision which happened in Yemen between Saudi Arabia and the UAE, we have to acknowledge that which in the world power, especially the global powers, who is the main country who is trying to replace UAE with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia in the region, in the Persian Gulf region, is still, and in larger Middle East, is the most influential country. And today, this role is being replaced by smaller countries like UAE. And there is an international support for the UAE to assume this role. And this is so consistent that UAE is being allowed to capture and take control of many of the port cities all over the region, including other parts of the world. So we have to focus UAE from this perspective that there is an international consensus or some agreement among the world powers that we should give a broader role to the UAE. The second thing which we have perhaps ignored, and my friend has also pointed out, that the role of Iran in that country. But I would like to my assumption is that there is an understanding between Iran and the United Arab Emirates. Because if you see the kind of understanding which was found between Ali Abdullah Saleh and UAE, most of the business and even today's business of Ali Abdullah Saleh's family is in UAE, and it has not been removed. And there is an understanding between the Houthis and the UAE. So the triangle is Saudi Arabia. The triangle is between Iran, UAE, and the Houthis. And Saudi Arabia is still not in that game. So how do you see this kind of formation which is coming at the cost of Saudi role in the region? Thank you.
So actually, we are time. So if you can briefly, just very brief, please. Yes.
أنا أتحدث عن دور الحوثيين. الأخوة تكلموا مشكورين على دور الحوثيين في اليمن، لكنهم نسوا نقطة مهمة وهذه دائما ينساها العالم أجمع، بأن هذه الجماعة جماعة عنصرية وتدعي الحكم باسم الله، يعني مثل النبلاء الذين كانوا في فرنسا. الأخ المتكلم الأمريكي قال هو يقول على انه نحن نسد معها باليمن. كيف نسد مع واحد يقول انا ساحكمكم باسم الله؟ يعني لماذا الاعلام الغربي او لماذا الاعلام في تركيا لا يتطرق الى هذه النقطه؟ هذه نقطه خطيره جدا. جماعه هذه عرقيه اثنيه لا يمكن التفاهم معها. السؤال الثاني هو تحويل الامارات دورها في اليمن من مش بس يعني لا يوجد لديها هدف احتلال اليمن فقط، وانما يبدو على انه كلها محاربه الاسلام السياسي، ليس في اليمن فقط وانما في الشرق الاوسط بكله. فاستغلت وجودها في اليمن ضمن التحالف العربي لهذا الهدف، بالاضافه الى السيطره على الموانئ والجزر اليمنيه وجنوب اليمن بشكل عام والسعي الانفصالي. شكرا جزيلا.
Good afternoon. Orsam, North Africa Studies Department. My question, actually, the statement, is about if you have any news about the negotiation process that we've heard in the media between the American and the Houthi. Knowing that, it's no doubt, the war in Yemen has become a proxy war of the regional powers. So how do you see the future of Yemen in light of these tensions and conflict? Thank you very much.
So briefly, final answers. You can start.
Okay, so to the first set of questions, I'd particularly like to address the question you had, which is quite an important one, about potential breaking up of the UAE and Saudi rivalry. So that's obviously been speculated a lot more in the media and by analysts lately. But personally, from what I've assessed of the conflict and their own relations, you need to look at it from their alliance from the broader perspective, not just of what's happening in Yemen, but how they relate to other countries in the region. So while Yemen is a diverging point for them, even then I think the divisions between them are slightly exaggerated by some commentators. Their alliance for both of them is quite crucial across the country. So they have been aiming to interfere in other countries' policies across the region. So obviously they've cooperated in Egypt and Sudan and Libya, backing authoritarian political actors in each country respectively, as they both fear the rise of democracy in the region and political Islam as well. So that is a big preoccupation for them. And I think it will be more so now, particularly as we've had more moves for reforms in the region. In Sudan, obviously there's been a revolution there, which is becoming more successful. And in Egypt as well, there have been protests in recent weeks. So that will preoccupy the countries more. And for Saudi Arabia especially, their alliance with the UAE is crucial. So even though the UAE's actions have gone against what Saudi Arabia wants in the country, without the UAE, Saudi Arabia would have zero legitimacy to actually intervene in the country. So Saudi Arabia would make compromises with what the UAE is doing. For example, they haven't criticised the southern secessionists as much as I think the Saudi Arabia, even though it doesn't want southern secession or the UAE to gain influence, it would have to reluctantly accept it. Otherwise, it would have no legitimacy to carry on targeting the Houthis in the country. So you could expect to see compromises rather than significant divisions between them. And now on to the question about the UAE's port situation and its ties with the international community. I think the UAE is, like I said, it's becoming more of a relevant power, not just regionally but internationally. It has shored up its relations with many different countries across the world, especially it's aimed at targeting more like superpowers. For example, it's tried to court Russia a lot more and China recently. China sees the UAE as a significant regional partner to work with because China has its own Belt and Road initiative, which involves gaining more of economic and trade routes across the Middle East and Central Asia and Africa. So the UAE is seen as a significant regional partner for that, a strategic place to be. So that's why China is supporting the UAE in that. And while that might help certain regional powers establish their own trade routes, and it might help the world's trade situation and economy, it's obviously you've got to look at the costs of what it's doing. You know, you've got to consider how it's impacting Yemeni people. So that's one thing we must consider. And was there another question for me?
Yes.
One question about Mahra province in Yemen. The Mahra province is important for Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia had a pipeline project in future over this Mahra in order to bypass the Hormuz Strait and prevent its oil supplying from Iran's influence there in the Gulf. They think construction of a pipeline over the Mahra and then bypass the Hormuz Strait. Also, this Mahra province is a bit interesting place. Their tribes are more close to Omani state, and Oman also tried to claim over Mahra sometimes. And then, but Saudi Arabia had an eye also over Mahra, and he made many investments there, pipeline projects and oil refinery projects, something as far as I know. Your second question is, UAE can be the next Qatar. Maybe both of the Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates can be next Qatar. What do I want to say? When the Republicans and Trump in the United States, for example, can't win the elections, these successor crown princes can be changed. Mohammed bin Salman and Mohammed bin Zayed, they were architects of this policy right now, as you know. If the Republicans lose power, maybe Democrats come to power in the United States, these crown princes automatically will be changed. But if they maintain quarreling among themselves, because in United Arab Emirates right now, the ruling emir of Abu Dhabi and Mohammed bin Zayed started quarreling among themselves. MBZ wanted to maintain the war in Yemen, but the ruling emir didn't want this anymore. He tried to solve the problem. He wanted to solve the problems with Iran nowadays, as you know, maybe if you look at the news. And then these internal problems will rise. But as far as I know, the real matter will be solved in the US elections in the following months.
شكرا جزيلا. نحن ذكرنا أن الدور الإيراني هو الذي عمل على تنشئة جماعة الحوثي منذ الثمانينات، ودعمها علي عبد الله صالح. وكان علي عبد الله صالح رئيس النظام السابق رجل استغلالي يلعب على إيران ويأخذ منها أموال ويورد سلاح وتأخذ جماعة الحوثي، ويلعب على دول الخليج والعالم تنظيم القاعدة، وجمع ثروة خارقة. لأن الدولة تقول أنه يملك 60 مليار دولار. فدور إيران واضح. الحراك الجنوبي هو بدأ منذ 7/7/2007 حراك سلمي، كل الشعب موافق على مطالب الحراك، لكن النظام السابق أساء لهذا الحراك ولم يعطي حقه، ثم انقلب للأسف الشديد هذا الحراك الجنوبي السلمي وجاءت ما يسمى بالحراك الجنوبي الانتقالي مدعوم من الإمارات ويطالب بالانفصال. لكن للأسف الانقلاب الأخير الذي حدث في عدن وادى الى مقتل يعني المئات وجرح المئات، يعني اساء لسمعه المجلس الانفصالي، ولم يعد الانفصال الان هو يعني رغبه الشعب الجنوبي وخاصه يعني الاخوان اليمنيين في المحافظات الجنوبيه. اشرت الى التفاهمات واللقاءات ما بين الامارات وما بين ايران، وما بين هناك تفاهمات ما بين الامارات وبين ميليشيات الحوثي الايرانيه. الامارات تريد ان تعبث باليمن، الامارات تريد يعني اخذ ثروات اليمن، الامارات تريد ان تنتقم من ثوره 2011 لانها حرمت الامارات ميناء عدن وتم الغاء القرار، وتريد الان ان تعيد سيطرتها وهيمنتها ولكن بقوه السلاح. وللاسف هناك من يدعم الامارات سواء على المستوى يعني التحالف العربي او على المستوى يعني الدولي. اتوقع ان مستقبل اليمن ان شاء الله سيكون مستقبل يعني على المدى القريب مستقبل غامض. الحرب ستطول في اليمن إذا استمر التحالف العربي يدير الحرب بهذه الطريقة، إذا استمر الخلاف داخل التحالف العربي بهذه الشكليات وكلها ضد الشعب اليمني، والذي يدفع الثمن هو الشعب اليمني، وشرعية أيضا ضعيفة لا تملك قرارها بيدها، إمارات تعبث بثروات اليمن وبقرار اليمن. أصبحنا بلا يعني في حكومة شرعية ولكن صورة، في رئيس ولكن صورة، في جيش يمني ولكن بدون سلاح. إذا نحن أمام مأزق خطير، ولن يكون الحل في اليمن في اعتقادي على إذا أردنا حلا نهائيا إلا بحسم عسكري، إما أن يعطى الجيش اليمني سلاح نوعي ويحرر ما تبقى من المناطق اليمنية وبقي 20%، وإما أن التحالف يترك التحالف في اليمن ويترك الحرب في اليمن ويدع اليمنيون يعني يتفقون مع بعض إما سلما أو حربا، وعلى إيران أن تسحب قرارها من اليمن ومن دعم ميليشيات الحوثي في اليمن. شكرا لكم.
Thank you to you all for joining us, and thanks for our panelists for giving us the opportunity to listen to them. And we hope to welcome you again on our future occasions. Thank you very much.
We have one more question.
Please, you can ask afterwards.
Okay, argument, but let's people hear it. In the presence of new geopolitics in the world and the rising powers of China, Russia, Iran is one of the main factors now in the world. It's not easy to defeat it, while at the same time it sits at the same table for nuclear weapons and the negotiations for America. So, in the absence of the Yemeni rule and the Yemeni role, both, shall we stay for many years just waiting for Saudi Arabia to intervene or Iran to get outside of it? What is the solution that we have to wait for? Like, Yemenis are nowhere nowadays.
Okay, thank you. We will discuss in the lobby. Thank you to you all.